Candy, do you know anyone in your life that causes all sorts of problems, trauma, harm, but it's never their fault? Even if they admit to it being their fault, it's always some other reason outside of them. Someone else made them do it. Do you know anyone like that?
No.
No? Nobody?
Only a few that I can come to mind.
Anybody in your life that you can think of that just thinks of themselves as the center of the universe? Everything's right with them. They got all the answers, and everyone else is insane. And speaking of the insanity, if you disagree with them, you're one of the insane people because everyone else in the world agrees with them. Anybody like that, you know?
Yeah.
No?
Yeah.
Any close people that you know?
I'm not giving names if that's you're fishing for, okay?
No, we don't want to air anyone out. But narcissism, it's for some reason, maybe it's just me and you and the algorithms we have, it's come up a lot and has been very prevalent in our lives. We've talked about it a few times here in the past. So we're going to dive in it deep tonight. But for a special treat, as some of you may see already, we are going to bring in another opinion from the great state of New York, where I think one or two narcissists have come from that we're experiencing today.
Only two.
Just a couple.
Only two.
Yeah, only two. No names.
But he has plenty of opinions on it, as I've seen on his TikToks recently, and showing how this is coming about through a Christian perspective. So let's talk about it. Let's dive into it. Let's get into it today on Drop the Stones.
Hi, I'm Candy.
And I'm Dan.
And you're listening to Drop the Stones,
a weekly podcast brought to you this week by Vanity Therapy, a new therapy program to help support your vanity. Do these quotes ring a bell with you? They were jealous of your greatness. You're not toxic. You're just misunderstood by the inferior. Vanity Therapy can help you because it's never your fault. Someone else always made you do it. They're the ones that caused it. I wouldn't be this way. I wouldn't have acted this way if you didn't make me act this way. Vanity Therapy will agree with you, and they'll even give you a printed out diagnosis so you can show it off to everyone that you're not the crazy one. They are, especially your ex. Vanity Therapy. Go online and check it out today. So we got a special guest on today again, our friend from New York, Brad. Brad, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about yourselves?
Perfect. I think you said it earlier, living the dream.
Brad is living the dream right now, for sure.
He is. Look at this setup
living the dream right now.
Yes.
We're stuck in a corner basement room, like a Chinese sweatshop, recording podcast, and he's out here exploring the nature outside of New York City. Grills behind him. He's probably got 2 steaks on there, pipe in his mouth. I mean, what more could you ask for?
As I said, I'm living in the dream. And it's gorgeous out tonight.
It is. It looks beautiful.
It is Long Island, New York, and so it has been in the 70s.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
Nice. Yeah, we just got done.
It's for the first time it's at the 70s mainly for this week.
Wow.
Yeah,
so
we got done. It was upper 80s, 90s. Then it dropped down to the 60s and rained for a week. Creeped back up to the 80s for a couple days and rained again all day yesterday.
That's the Midwest.
It's wonderful.
That's sad.
It makes us tough. We're resilient folk out here.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yes, you are.
Whatever we have to tell ourselves.
So I seen you pop up here recently it's probably, about 2-3 weeks ago. I started seeing posts from Brad. And they were interesting posts because it's something that's been really close to me and Candy's hearts, dealing with narcissistic behavior. And you had a unique way of going through it, and something that I've kind of alluded to and Candy's alluded to in the past on TikTok posts and on these episodes of how narcissistic is religion, especially the Christian faith. And you've taken a really unique spin on it by actually going through using your therapy background and just kind of comparing it to the what's called the DSM-5. Is that right?
Yeah.
DSM-5.
DSM-5.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, first off, why don't you, since you're the student of therapy and psychological issues.
He's basically the person that's combining like psychology with his pastor background too.
Yes.
You're like taking that,
point.
you know, the scripture verses and then adding this layer is interesting.
So why don't you go in and kind of give us a little overview of what you have been doing, and then we'll hop into some examples and kind of explain it. Maybe kind of explain narcissism and how this is pertained to these videos you've been posting out in under 2 minutes.
Under 2 minutes. Okay,
No.
here we go. So not long ago, I thought, hey, you know what? Due to my pastor background and due to how long I was a pastor, 20 plus years, and growing up in the Christian faith, I was always the person that could give the pat answer and make people feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I left religion, probably about, oh my God, 6 years ago, I did more digging and I started asking more questions. And as I began my clinical mental health degree track that I'm on right now, that I'm almost done with, I started seeing some very similar parallels between narcissism and what it says in there to the God of the Bible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the actions of him and his people. And I thought, why don't we walk through this? Why don't we look at this, and instead of saying, well, God's allowed to do whatever he wants, well, why don't we look at the moral God and see what's happening within these passages that are so revered, by the Christian faith. And so that's what I've been doing for the last couple of weeks. And I'm still in the Old Testament. Because there's so much good stuff there.
Oh, man.
And there'll be still good stuff in the New Testament as well. So that's what I'm doing.
I will say that pastors like you that would give those just pat answers, irritated me so bad. But that's what started my deconstruction, is like the answers were not satisfying to me, So it actually probably helps people deconstruct in a way if they think long enough,
Yeah, and it was that T-shirt idea we always had of curiosity killed the Christian.
Yeah.
So curiosity and questioning.
I think you're right, Candy, because... Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, go ahead.
There's a delay.
The Zoom delay. So.
Andy, I couldn't agree with you more because my deconstruction started... it was all kind of like waning there, but with the miscarriage, and I couldn't find the answer.
Yeah.
Right. No matter what I said, the pat answers no longer were relevant to me.
Yep.
And that started that whole thing.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It's so they what they don't realize is when they're giving those answers, because they learn them. It's the same. It's the same with all of just even narcissism, as I know we'll get into. Like the codependent who lives with the narcissist takes on the phrases that the narcissist teaches them and then spews it out when it, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like the pastors, I don't know where they were getting, who was teaching the pastors, but the pastors all had the same answer. No matter what church I went to, I knew the answer I would get if I asked. And it was the same answer from all of them, which could mean truth. It could, but it didn't really answer the question a lot of times. You know what I'm saying? That's what would be so frustrating.
And that's the response for pastoral staff is, hey, I don't have a answer for this, so we'll just put the God of the gaps in it.
Okay.
And just kind of find comfort in the fact that God knows and has a plan.
Yeah, I got that a lot of times. Or like God, or just, yeah, God knows what he's doing. You got to trust him. We can't trust in ourselves. His ways are mysterious. His ways are above our ways, So, it does shut you down. It just, you kind of push it to the back of your mind then.
It's have faith.
Yeah.
Because I remember we used to get taught all the time the Hall of Fame of Faith, which was led by Job and then Abraham and all these guys that showed tremendous faith because of the trust they put in God.
Yeah.
And never swayed from it. And they were held up in high regard. This is the standard to meet to. Look what they went through. Your menial problems don't match to Job's plight that he went through, so you can handle whatever things going on in your life right now.
Job's one of Brad's examples, isn't he?
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Brad froze.
There
he is.
I am switching to a different location to see if we can get rid of the internet issue.
Okay.
So, with that being the case, but it's interesting, Candy, when you mentioned, and Dan, when you mentioned, hey, the people of faith, right? The Job, the Moses, all the rest of them that were seen as great men of faith. If you look in those passages, God is actually kind of a dick.
Oh yeah.
To them and is manipulative. And I think that is the issue, is the fact that the reason why they're considered great men of faith is because they bow down to a narcissist.
Yes.
In my opinion.
Okay. So because which is not strength, it's very weak to bow down to a narcissist, right? But yet that's why they were picked to be put in these stories. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, because their so-called success was doing what the narcissist wanted them to do.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. The interesting part about that is, it's like, take Moses, for instance. Moses kills a guy, like an Egyptian, supposedly, and even though there's no real solid evidence that Israel was ever in Egypt.
Yeah.
Kills a guy, goes and does the 10 plagues, right? Which is terrible in and of themselves, the killing the firstborn, everything like that. Go God, good job. All the while, God knows exactly what's going to happen before it happens and still started the world, which is my big contention.
Mm-hmm.
And then Moses takes his people through the wilderness with terrible GPS. All right. They wander around forever. And then he gets angry once and he strikes a rock.
Oh, yep.
God, although Moses has been a fabulous leader, says, okay, by the way, because you did that, you'll no longer go in the promised land, nor will any of the other people until they die off.
Yep. That story always bothered me. Yeah.
I'm thinking, how is that
just?
How does it see that as just? Right. Yeah. Right. How does anybody look and go, okay, that's a good call by God?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why I talk about the DSM-5 and go through the solid list of narcissism and how many you have to have in order to be classified as a narcissist. That the lack of empathy and the grandiose view of your own self, those two alone, outside of everything else that's on there, which I can go through, are on full display in all these stories. Right? Like you talk about colonialism at its best or worst, depending on how you look at it. Like I talked about today, right? The promised land, or the other day, the promised land. God says, I want you to have that land. And I don't like, and every time God calls for something to be destroyed, it's because he's deemed it wicked. Right? That's always the catch-all. And because God is so just, it's got to be destroyed.
Yeah.
Which in and of itself is bullcrap. If you go all the way back to the beginning of saying, okay, this so-called just God or moral God created the earth so that people would worship him, which is another characteristic of narcissism.
Yes.
all the while setting them up for failure, knowing exactly what's going to happen. And there will be more people that he'll throw to hell for finite issues than anybody that ever goes to heaven.
Mm-hmm.
See, I'm wondering, this might be a little bit of a floppy dick, as we called it in a previous episode, a tangent. Little terminology we created. But I'm wondering if this explains a lot of the Christian mentality and plays into the fear, because they, on one hand, will say God is the most just, he's the most loving, and he'll sort everything out in the end.
Not even he's the most loving. He is love, is what they'll say.
Yeah. But when it comes down, because you ask him questions, but what if this happened, and you did, you told a lie right before you died. Well, God is so just, and he's the definition of just. He is love. So he'll sort it out in the end. But if their definition of just is based off his character, and his character is this one mistake, Moses, you got pissed, and you hit that rock twice, because it didn't result the first time, which I've done so many times when I've tried to start a lawnmower or fire up something else. Some words come flying out of me. But now you don't get to go to the promised land. So if that's their definition of just, no wonder there's so much fear in a Christian on how they live their day-to-day life, because is this enough? Did I not remember something to ask forgiveness for? And it puts that anxiety and stress on them at all times, that this is our definition of justice. One mistake and you're done.
Well, and think about this, and I know you probably have, but that kind of justice has bled over into Israel going to the promised land, let's say, all right? Mm-hmm. And has bled over into the white man coming to America. Mm-hmm. That they foresee anybody that does not worship the way they worship as expendable.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
They're saved or they're expendable. Mm-hmm. What did the white people do when they came to America? Well, they looked at the Native Americans and said, "You're out. Mm-hmm. We're going to kill you and we're going to move you at all costs," because just like God told the Israelites to take the land, we are taking the land.
Mm-hmm. Yep, manifest destiny.
It's a colonialism that's bred into the people in Christianity because it's their God.
Yeah, it's still having a strong effect today in the Middle East. That all of that is part of that.
Yes.
It's having a strong effect in America.
It's everywhere
because
of colonialism. We have to get
this out and all this.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I mean, we have a narcissist in office. I mean, it's it is in a lot of America. It's like this pride within a lot of Americans to be that way.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Like it gives humanity something to grab onto and feel significant.
I think a great example of it is there was a Baptist preacher. I saw a video of him, and he was trying to justify enslavement in America. And he's sitting there and he's like, well, I know it's not great how they were treated and how they were brought here, but they got to learn about God.
Yes,
so
I remember that. I remember hearing that as a kid.
This was from the pulpit in a sermon, justifying that because we gave them the Bible and the message of God, are they really that bad off?
Well, think about this. I was taught that, 25 years ago in a Christian school. If they're telling it from the pulpit now, this is being taught to these kids that are questioning things, and they have questions. Well, why did we do that? And, that seems wrong. It seems to clash with this idea of God is love, and then he's doing these kinds of things. And that's the answers that they were giving. I got those answers too. Like, it was good for the enslaved people because they got to hear about Christ. Otherwise, they would go to hell forever, and now they won't. I mean, that's how they justified it. And it seemed like, okay, and when you have a young mind like that, you can shift it very easily, and so then these are the person who's preached that from the pulpit, probably about my age, probably started learning that in these Christian schools or home schools, That's scary.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you hit on it right. And I know we've probably discussed this before, and I know you guys have, but I feel like the way religion survives especially Christianity, is not only because of its past history, but because of the manipulation of the young.
Yeah.
Their brains are nowhere near developed, and they don't have any critical thinking skills, or not much at all. And because they don't want to be separated from their parents in heaven or hell,
Yeah.
and because they dream more, right? I mean, Santa Claus is real, the Easter Bunny is real. Yeah, I mean, like the Tooth Fairy.
Okay, Joni Ernst.
Those kinds of things. They are easily manipulated, gaslit, and their brains form neural pathways to go to those answers they've been taught when they're young.
Well, yeah, because they are when I was in school for hypnotherapy, from the ages of birth up to 8 or 9, you are in theta waves constantly. You don't go out of them. So that is when we put somebody in hypnosis, we go into theta waves because you're suggestible. And that's why kids so easily believe in Santa Claus. And it's about the age of 8 or 9 that they start asking questions like, wait a second, this doesn't line up. Their logic and reason kind of comes around.
It's going to go to all the houses, right? I mean, like,
yeah. Like what? In one night?
How does this work? I saw him at this mall, then an hour later I saw him at that mall.
Well,
what's going on here?
Yeah, he's quick.
I will say, Brad, on one of your videos, I learned that you said that a narcissist, I'm pretty sure it was your video, a narcissist wants 2 things. They either want praise or they want pity. Did you say that?
I don't know if I put it that way, but yes, that's correct.
Okay. That just was eye-opening to me. It helped me understand personal issues that we've had because we don't give pity or praise. They don't like that.
I have known narcissists in my life, obviously, but especially, recently. And and God's like this, I think, in the Bible too, because God's a jealous God.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So they like to, number one, have all the focus on them.
Yes.
So when someone else grabs that focus away, the narcissist will a lot of times throw a pity party and get the focus right back on them, away from that other person, as a form of manipulation and control over the household.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Right.
They use empathy.
In a sense, if you look at that within Scripture and God, He does the same thing. If the Israelites stray or start thinking about something else, He throws the pity party and He throws the judgment down to get the people's focus back on Him, except because He's God, He can then strike disease.
Yeah, there's weight. Yeah.
Have you, because He wants to. In the real world where we are, we see the narcissist person do it through giving the cold shoulder, the silent treatment, saying, I never said that, you're imagining things. That narcissist will go to different lengths to control and cripple the household. All the while, because when the people are crippled and he's done sucking the energy out of them, let's say it's a him, it'd be a her, he's done sucking the energy out of them, he then feels empowered, like he's back in control. So he likes to keep everyone else down.
Yeah.
In their submissive state. And when someone starts to get a little bit happy, he pushes them back down.
Okay.
Right? Because that's his power. Right? Yeah. Because he doesn't want, and there's no reason to argue with the narcissist, because their point of view on the world
is very different. Yeah.
Different, because it's all about them. They are the earth and the sun, and everything else revolves around them.
So they literally think they are right? They're not convincing themselves. They believe they are right. Is that true?
Yes. I heard something before that a narcissist has black spots in their memory. So all the reality that happened where they'd be at fault or would cast judgment upon them, it's blacked out in their mind. So since there's these open spots, it gets filled in with whatever they filled in with.
Yeah, your brain will do
so
that.
So they remember from their point of view, this is how it happened. Because this is how
I would go a little further and say that the narcissist will know, or if they feel cornered, the reality is flipped. They will flip it to do anything to be told they're wrong. They will take a situation and try to make it so the other person's at fault because of something they said or something they did. It's not so much of did they remember it right or not. They're just looking at it from their lens of like, no, I'm right.
Like they can't consider that they might not be right.
Right. And if they do consider that, that's not a feeling they want to have.
Yeah.
And they feel they give up power if they admit to being wrong.
Yes.
Okay.
And then, sometimes is they may come out and say, yeah, that probably wasn't the best choice, but.
Yeah. I've heard that.
Right. And they'll give you a little leeway and the other person a little hope only to smash them if they go too far with it. Right. Or if they want to regain control. And that's kind of like the way they sometimes love bomb.
Yeah.
I am almost convinced, and I'm sure I'll get pushback on this. I'm almost convinced that a narcissist is incapable of true love.
I've thought that before
their
too.
true love is themselves.
Yeah. Well, they lack a lot of emotional.
Give it to anybody else. And I think that we see that if I'm going to go so far as say, I think we see that with God in the Bible.
Yeah.
I want to pull it back to that. Okay. So God in the Bible, let's just talk about just Christianity itself and not so much the Bible. I have a question, and I've had this theory. I think I posted about it probably over a year ago, and I did get some conversation going, but I had this thought, like, does Christianity produce a mental illness? And because in my own family, I now understand, like, I didn't understand the narcissist part, but I could see these codependents, and I know that narcissists and codependents are drawn to each other, right? I felt like as a woman, and I know there are men too, but I can only speak from my perspective that as a woman, I was definitely a people pleaser. That I was trained to do that, and that's what I did. So I was very codependent on the approval of these pastors or whatever, but I know the men in the congregation feel the same. But it also produces so I would say, obviously this is just me speaking from my own opinion, but it seems like a lot of pastors, not ones that deconstruct like you, but ones who really dig in it and they build these they're narcissists. And then they produce these narcissist men or women, but it just seems like a lot of times it's men, not always, you know what I'm saying? And then these women are codependents, or everybody else in the congregation are codependents. Is there anything to that possibly?
I think there is, because look at that shit-eating gritty ass.
Fabulous viewpoint. Okay, so first of all, Kane, that's a great question to ask about mental issues with that. So I think you're right on a lot of it. Okay, first of all, when we talk about narcissistic behavior, we see a lot of that within the church. Right? We see that, like, I mean, it's funny because I look back now and how many pastors did I know that were actually narcissists or deacons or elders?
Yeah, in a place of power.
Right, in some sort of position of power, which is interesting. Your point. It's like you see less women in the church that are narcissists because they're not placed in places.
Yes, that's exactly it. Not because women are impervious to this happening. They're just not in those positions to get. Right. Yes. Okay.
Okay. Now that does go, is it nature or nurture? Right. You kind of asked that question about what's happening. I think it's both.
Okay.
I think it can be all nature too. I don't know. Okay. This is just an interesting question. But I think the narcissist trains people to be codependent.
Okay. Yep.
Through his words and through his actions and the use of the power of the scripture, if you will. And because that's who God is.
Oh man.
Uh-oh. I think we lost him again.
He was going to say something so good.
He'll come back.
Yeah, we'll just wait for him. Because the narcissist is, what was he saying? We need to make sure.
Do we lose?
Okay, so what gives the pastors the most power is the fact that God himself is a narcissist.
Mhm.
If you look at the DSM-5, all right? And women are not placed in positions of power
Mhm.
within the church. So men are. And so these men within Christianity train the people that are sitting in the pews in their seats to be subservient. How you say
Subservient.
Subservient. Thank you.
Yeah.
Subservient to the pastors because the pastors are following the word of God, which is supposedly from God himself.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So God himself is training people to be submissive in creating narcissistic behavior.
Okay, so that might be why there are more men in America that tend to be narcissists. I don't know if that's true, but it seems like it. Okay. Because of this almost Christianity and how it's being taught, evangelical Christianity, I will say. I'm not going to say I know all of it, but it won't help to put more women as evangelical preachers because they're susceptible to it too.
Because they're following the same
Exactly.
teachings.
It's the teachings that are causing okay. And then you said something interesting too. You said that the pastor trains the congregation to be codependent because he's narcissistic. And then it creates codependence. And I would agree that a lot of it could just be nurture because I was born into the system. I think you were too, born into it, grew up in it. We don't have a shot until we can actually begin to think for ourselves. We don't know how to, but and it's rare. I don't know what the numbers are, but like for someone to come in and fall for everything that they're teaching, if they come in as an adult, because Dan came in as an adult to evangelicalism from loose Catholicism, and he didn't like a lot. I mean, some of it he just accepted because he wanted to get married to me, but a lot of it he was just like,
But think of the mindset too. I was deeply in love, so it's very susceptible,
which is hypnosis,
and very influential or easily influenced.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the people that come into faith at an older age in adulthood, you think about Colson and the prison ministries. So you got evangelicals going out to prisons all the time.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to AA meetings. They're going to
where people are kind of down and out. Yeah.
Youth places where kids have run away. So
Homeless
you're finding
shelters.
people that are in stressful, desperate situations, and you're offering a carrot to them. And they're in a susceptible state.
Yes. And I think that one of the things that we have to keep in mind is I'm not saying that every pastor is a narcissist.
No. Yeah. We've known both.
The main hoo-ha.
Yeah.
God.
Yes. Yeah.
It's a narcissist and his teachings are passed down that way.
Yes.
And although people have a voice within church, the only thing that gives them a voice in church, and not the only thing, but I think one of the only things that gives them a voice in church is how much they tithe. Right?
From that, you know it from that end, and that probably sounds right.
Because if they tithe a lot of money, the pastors are more apt to listen to them and heed their thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to lose that money.
It's no different than politics. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've known pastors throughout all my things, and the lead pastor would always ask, "Okay, who are the main givers?"
Oh, wow!
And let me go take them to lunch.
Yes.
Wow.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of crap is that?
Yeah,
that
really.
Was we had the last guest we had. That's Sarah.
My mind's drawing a blank. Are you talking about the Oracle?
No. But she was a pastor and was studying to be in ministry. It's going to come to me.
Was it Sarah?
Sarah.
The author?
Yes. Okay. Author Sarah. Yes, author Sarah. Yes, that's it. Thank you. Old man brain. But she was talking about that too when they were church planting. And she was saying, well, why can't we just, they're talking about, well, we need radio or we need speakers and lights and buildings and all this. And she's like, well, why can't we just meet at a park and have a service there and start off that way, small and in public spaces for free? Serve hot dogs, and the hot dog buns could be communion when we do that. And they're like, no. And she was actually given a book on how to approach wealthy people in the community so that they would tithe more often. And they were...
Or they would just at least come to your church because they would be great tithers, if you could get them to tithe. How much
the people that were the big tithers had the voice on how everything ran in the church, because money talks. So, and the messages were catered. The pastor, I think she actually said the pastor she was under was catering messaging to the biggest tithers in there. So what they were dealing with was what the sermon was going to be about. It didn't matter what was happening with the majority of the church. Daddy Warbucks over here was having an issue with this, so we're going to cater our sermon to that so that he will give more money. And that's what they were taught.
I can verify it. And you guys know that I was one of 3 pastors that planted a church in Florida. And we started with 12 people. I think it's like 1,500 right now. Okay. And the lead pastor, we all started as equal, and then the narcissist elevated himself to lead pastor. He wouldn't go so far as to dictate, to bend to the money, but he would take them out to eat and do everything he could to smooth over so they didn't go anywhere. Right? Like he would keep those friendships going or whatever have you.
He would invest in them.
Yeah, he would invest exactly and try to cast vision to them and stuff like that, all those kinds of things. And to, because it wasn't about the parks, it was about we're meeting in a school, we got to get people to serve, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Can I ask you, how did he, out of the 3 of you, get elevated to that position? What was the process?
He told us that the 3 wasn't going to work because there needed to be basically one voice, right? And he was the one that had the vision for the church, right? He basically thought it should be him. So the original vision of, hey, 3 pastors equal, no hierarchy.
So that was the original vision.
Yeah. So the Trinity didn't work for your pastoral concept.
No, and it wasn't long into it that he said, okay, basically, in my interpretation, basically said, no, I'm going to be the pastor. And I wasn't going to argue. The other pastor put up a little bit of a disgruntlement with it, but was ultimately, I think, shut down, maybe. And we just went along. Because to not go along is to, stop the church per se.
Don't you love God and the work of God? Don't slow it down, because then you're like the devil or a demon or something.
Oh, and if you're called to this, you're going to do what you need to do.
Yeah, that's true. And you could easily be, I'm sure he could come up with all sorts of reasons why he should be in that position, and he knew weaknesses and strengths to play off of. And then you would just be like, this is God telling us to do this.
Yeah. And that's another thing that kind of, I think, speaks to the narcissism of the pastoral, because how do you become a pastor? Well, I was called by God.
Yeah.
And
pull the God card.
Yeah.
He speaks
who can argue with that?
How many pastors have you seen say, don't ever question the pastor, don't argue with the pastor, because I'm getting my message straight from God and I'm his mouthpiece to you. Yep. So you're automatically putting yourself in this grandiose position of it's God then me, in this battle. So respect me, because that's just important.
Them by one of the criteria.
Yeah. Well, and it brings up one of the stories in the Bible where you can see God being a narcissist, which is the story they would tell. Like I told my mom one time, this is early in my deconstruction, and they liked like Kenneth Copeland and stuff. And I was like, there's something about this guy. He's not really telling truth, blah, blah, blah. And my mom said, "You can't speak about a man of God that way, Candy." Like, basically shut me down. Like, and the story that always got brought up when I would do that is the story where I think it's Elisha I think it's Elisha. He's walking and the kids some teenagers make fun of his bald head. Sorry guys, but they thought it was quite funny. And then some bears come out and I think eat the children.
Yes.
It's
and
insane.
That's be okay.
Yes, and it was okay. It was like they shouldn't have been saying, yeah. So I mean that examples of those kinds of stories, he sounds like a narcissist. That's just awful.
If that story was true, our kids would
I
be
mean,
dead.
if you really think about it, and you guys have, I know you have, that example of the bears and the children, okay, means you don't mess with the prophet of God.
Yep.
Goes right in line with who God is, because of all the other times he's caused genocide throughout the Old Testament scripture.
Yeah.
I mean, like, if it doesn't work, he just kills and moves on.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's not the flood, it's Sodom and Gomorrah, right? Where we see Abraham being more empathetic towards the people than God himself. Even 10. Come on, don't destroy all these people. Jonah, and it's just kind of like, I look at that and go, okay, so God is killing more people than the so-called devil. All right.
Yeah.
And he doesn't care if they're men, women, children, and babies.
Yeah. Nope.
He actually calls for the slaughter of women and babies.
Yes, throwing the babies' heads bodies against the rocks, right? Oh, by the way, though, if it's a virgin, you can take her.
Yeah, exactly. She's your property. Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, like, and kill the livestock while you're at it.
Well, and people, okay, I remember this in high school. I remember having problems with these verses when we would get to them. And I would ask teachers, and on that one with that you just mentioned about the taking the
virgins.
No, even killing the babies, because that one was pretty bad. He didn't always say kill the children. Yeah, he'd be like, you can take the women. And I think maybe sometimes he let the young children live. I don't know. But sometimes he didn't. He was sporadic, whatever he wanted to do, whatever he was feeling that day. And when I was troubled by this, and I would bring it up, I was told that those kids would have just grown up and they would have wanted vengeance for their parents. So they would have killed. You see what I'm saying? They can. Basically, what I'm trying to ask you, is there any way we can help people? This is just, it's so, this thinking, this way of thinking is so adaptable. It will just flip in circles around, and so that you're almost confused and you have to just go, whatever. Is there any hope to help people see this even? I don't even know.
Isn't that the tactic of the narcissist? To make you feel confused and crazy?
Well, it does.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So
the
it's working.
Goal is to keep you on edge.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
it's to keep you guessing.
Well, and it does, even thinking about the end times. The urgency of the end times is hanging over everybody's head all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like
judgment.
Yeah.
All that is hanging over the head, right? But I think it's also interesting that free will is what everybody argues for. In Christianity. Oh, not everyone, but a lot of people do.
Yep.
And not predestination. Depending upon your Calvinist or not.
Yep.
That though free will is fine until it's not.
Yes.
Right. And that's an instance of when it's not fine, because what if they grow up and want vengeance? Right. And you ask if there's any way to help with people that are struggling with these kinds of narcissistic imprisonments that they have. And really the only way that I have seen healing begin to take place is when they isolate themselves away from those behaviors or teachings.
So they have to pull away from it for a while.
They're continually in the loop, because a narcissist can't help but pull them back in a loop and realize that they've been trained and taught how they're supposed to feel, how they're supposed to think. And when they start to veer off that, then you've got the guilt trips, then you've got the manipulation, then you've got the gaslighting, then you've got the I'm going to ignore you with the silent treatment. You get all of these kinds of things that pull them right back in and make them feel powerless.
Mhm.
And that is another key aspect within the narcissistic tools, is to remove your identity.
Mm.
Sound like
Christianity does that, yeah.
Remove your identity, and instead your identity becomes the narcissist identity.
Yes. Oh my God, yeah.
Right? Which is totally New Testament. I haven't gotten there yet, right?
Yeah.
The authenticity is gone. The autonomy is gone. And so the only way to heal from those things is to actually leave the situation. And that is brutal in and of itself.
Yeah. Because that's what we've all experienced it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially like if somebody's dealing with a narcissist at home, that narcissist is going to make life for the person leaving brutal, because that energy source that he requires and that praise and worship that he longs for is walking out the door.
Yeah.
And I think people underestimate when they say little flippant things like, it'll feel better in a little while.
Yeah.
Right. Or you just have to leave. Well, most likely the narcissist, much like the God of the Bible narcissist, has done is already stripped them from everything, or tried to where they feel like they have nothing without the narcissist.
Yeah.
That's the whole teaching of Christianity.
Exactly. Yes.
The whole communal, the umbrella theology of if you step outside of the umbrella of protection from God, you're at the devil's wiles.
Yeah.
And there's no safety out there. And when you leave, how do Christians treat you? You're shunned. You're out there. And we're going to actually pray for you to fall, because that will drive you to your knees and bring you back to the faith.
Yeah. And here's a thing that just occurred to me, because as a hypnotherapist, I think about the subconscious, what's going on. You're almost, the longer you're trapped to a situation where you are almost not isolated with the narcissist, but you are programmed, it's washed over, and you go to church, you go to Sunday school, then you go to Wednesday nights, and your bubble becomes all Christian, right? And you guys talk about these things sometimes, and you're supposed to read your Bible in the morning and your Bible before you go to bed and say your prayers. And it's washing over your mind constantly. What the subconscious is going to do is it associates these unknowns, or what feels uncomfortable, as unsafe. So when you do start to think for yourself and it feels different, your subconscious is saying, this isn't safe. What safety is to you becomes this powerless state. That feels safe, to just be told what to think. And you know what I'm saying? That becomes, so it's just a very difficult.
You're exactly right, Candy.
Yeah.
You're exactly safety for them becomes, I know what's going to happen to me if I don't do this.
Yeah.
And you're kind of more willing, when you're stuck in that situation, to go along with it because it feels easier than not.
Yeah. And it feels more comfortable. Like it feels really, as we deconstructed, you get into, as you still deconstruct, these really uncomfortable, you got to sit with those uncomfortable emotions. And you realize after you sit with them, they'll move. You won't stay uncomfortable forever, but it feels uncomfortable in these new situations, these new understandings, these new experiences. And in Christianity, you don't do that. Evangelical, at least how I was raised, you just do not do that. You do not go into the unknown. You don't get to know anybody who's different. If you do, that's dangerous. And so out of fear, you're kept in the bubble until you have the courage enough. Like I've said so many times, people who deconstruct are the most courageous people. They really are. It is not an easy journey to go on at all. And
you might get some kickback in the sense of, no, I mean, Christians go to work and they deal with the non-Christian all the time and whatever have you. Yeah. I think the emphasis here is the spiritual abuse of the spiritual bubble and what you're allowed to go out of.
Yes. Or like getting to know someone who's in the LGBTQ community. Actually talking to an atheist about what they believe, not just hearing a Christian tell you what an atheist believes, not just hearing a Christian teach you about evolution, but actually listen to someone who believes in it and teaches it, maybe like a college professor, and see how they would teach it. Does it make sense? Because when what they tend to do is you read Christian authors writing about the people that are other. And so it's got this bend to everything, and you're not allowed to get up close to them because you can't be friends with them in that way. You have to be preaching at them if you are.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's always the bubble, right? It's always the control. And that's what narcissism does, right? It's so I'm going to have control of you when you're even away from the church.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's the same, like, especially if you find them within households, and I keep bringing up the households because, I mean, that's where life is done, right?
Yeah.
So it's hey, your life is in this household and I'm going to control you in this household. And you will obey because of what you know to be true spiritually. Right. And if you're not a Christian, say you try to deconstruct or have you, the household's no longer safe.
Yeah.
Because there's still a narcissist in the household.
Yeah.
Well, I will tell you, like, we have someone that we love very, very much who did begin to deconstruct, but does live with the narcissist. And we have no contact with this person anymore. But this person deconstructed with me for years, but it caused problems in the marriage because it was creating this. And now this person is completely isolated and I have no contact with them anymore. It's the saddest thing, but it's like, it's interesting to hear what might be going on behind closed doors, which I would hear stories, but they're just being kept in that bubble where they will have authority over them.
Yeah. Well, because it's all about control. Right. And so if he cuts off contact with the outside world, where does that person go? What does that person do?
Yeah. Keeping contact with the outside world safe for them and their image. Because if they're in contact with someone that gives an alternate image, a negative image to the narcissist, then that's not going to fly. That blew up into a giant mess.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, think about this. If let's say a woman is married to a narcissist, no one will ever know what goes on behind closed doors because that person will not have any friends.
Yep.
That wife won't have any friends. And then all that matters for the narcissist is how he's viewed outside of the house.
Yep.
To keep up that image.
Because she can't tell anybody.
Yeah.
But all the Facebook posts.
That's where the problem was.
That's what they do.
Yeah. And all the Facebook posts that you see and
everything's fake.
It's this happy family. It's the love of my life, all this bullshit. Even though some of the truth going on behind the doors, closed doors, like that's
interesting.
A completely different image that's getting painted out in the world.
Well, it's in to take it back even to Christianity, it's still the same. They make Christianity, it's wholesome. Look at this, how wholesome this is. A mom and a dad raising their beautiful children. The children all behave. They don't act wild and crazy, They sit quietly in church. They say, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, thank you, and please, It's all this wonderful facade. And how many times when we were in Christianity, our kids, they knew how to toe the line when they were out in public and stuff. They knew, but behind closed doors, like there was times like I would snap. I'd be like, I'm going to lose my mind. Would I have done that out in public? No. I would have just been like,
and we also spent
you're going to be in big trouble.
20 minutes driving to church and every event yelling at the kids to behave themselves. Otherwise, there's going to be consequences after church. Put on this mask, put on this image.
Yeah.
And I'd like to go even a little bit further into that is the shrapnel, if I can call it that, decimates the kids at home.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
They grow up not knowing or unfortunately knowing a certain way to treat a woman.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right. Or how they're supposed to be treated. They think, oh, dad treats mom like this, so me being a girl, I'm supposed to be treated like
Yeah.
that.
Mm-hmm.
It sets them up for failure the longer they are with the narcissist.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? Because they start then thinking, okay, these are the qualities. This is what being a man is supposed to be. Or as a woman, this is what a woman's supposed to be, or submissive. And it sets up those qualities. And no matter how much the wife puts on a good face, you can't stop that from happening as the child's developing.
No, you can't.
As much as you try to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that people underestimate when talking about narcissism, because it's such a catchy word nowadays.
Yes,
Oh,
it is.
yeah. Everything's,
Understand, number one, what it is. And number two, they fail to realize how the children or the spouse, whoever it is, male or female, the lack of pain, or they don't see the pain that's within the children for the one, because it's not safe for them to do that. And so you get children then that lash out. And they lash out in different ways depending upon the child. And all they really want is dad to actually care.
Yeah. Yeah.
But really, the kids and the wife, let's say, are merely status symbols or to be brought out of the house and be displayed when it serves his purpose.
Yeah.
Like, when you look at the church, and the church is no different with that.
No.
And if you look at God loves putting his people on display when they're doing what he wants them to do. But the love disappears. Love disappears when they do not, or they start questioning. Job's a perfect example.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like, okay, Job's this man of God. There's a wager going on, all that. I did that video, right?
Yeah.
So, and I go all into depth, but it's like, okay, God felt good about himself because he won the wager. And, I know you lost everything. Let me give it all back to you, tenfold or whatever have you. Doesn't that feel better? No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want my old kids back.
Yeah. And suddenly that's a great story. And the problem is Job, when he asks God about it, he gets shut down. Well, where were you when I created the foundation? They're like, well, damn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a relatable God.
Yeah. And I think a couple points what you just said there. One, narcissists want to control the narrative, especially narrative about themselves. So everything is strategic and planned and put out.
Well, and he knew he was going to win, right?
Yeah, he did. Exactly.
Yep. We're going to make this the image that we want to display on everything. And that's exactly what Christians are. Everything is a facade put out in the world. We are these great people. We help our community. Well, how do you help your community? I don't see a lot of Christian organizations. You'll see a handful down at the homeless shelter or something like this. But what are you actually doing in the community other than these glorified photo ops that are out there? You're not. You're actually causing more harm in your community. But
you might sell money to make you feel better.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. We'll throw some money into these things and all that. So it's this image and they're controlling the narrative on what they want to put out. And the other thing that you brought up that kind of reminded me of something was how these kids in narcissistic families learn how to treat the narcissist. They know the responses and answers to give at all times.
Well, yeah, that's true. I just want to say, because maybe my dad's a narcissist. I don't know. Obviously he's never been diagnosed, but there's some indications. There's certain things. I knew certain subjects I could never talk about. And there was about 3 that I could talk about and I knew it. And I remember thinking if I'd hear him like in the kitchen and I'm walking that direction, I would kind of refresh my mind. Okay, these subjects are safe, which is super weird that I remember this, but I remember doing that as a teenager, especially. But I lost my train of thought. With Christians, they do that with God. So they will say with their mouth, I adore him, blah, blah, blah. But they have all these thoughts that they're battling inside. They just can't be honest. You can't be honest with the narcissist. So you can't be honest with this God at all. You can't really say, I don't think what you're doing is fair and just. I think what you're doing is cruel. You have to just side with him, no matter what the circumstance. Let's say you're facing somebody who has been, sexually assaulted and they need to do something about a pregnancy that was the result of that. And you think that their life would be better if they would do that. But instead, you have to go with what you've been taught that the Bible says or this God believes. And so you see what I'm saying? You can't even do what you really think is the right thing to do. You're going against your conscience constantly. It's definitely, there's.
Oh. And to piggyback off that a little bit more is, remember, their brains, much like if they're in church in Sunday school, are being trained to think a certain way and be a certain way because they're still forming. They don't know how to critically think, but they're just surviving.
Yeah. Yeah.
So everything's about survival mode.
Yeah. And I would say isn't that why, or I don't know, I guess you've got more education on this. Like, I think being evangelical or fundamentalist or whatever, I think it delays the critical thinking skills. Like, I don't think my critical thinking skills really turned on until I was like 20, almost 30 years old. Then I started to go, wait a second. I started to look closer. Maybe it's because having children. I don't know.
It was repressed.
If you don't train your kids and begin to train them when they're young to think critically, to ask questions and let them think about it, and Christianity doesn't do that.
No.
And that it suppresses, right? Then there's a reason why you see people deconstructing in their 20s.
Yeah.
Because their brain is more developed and stuff too. And they're out of the home.
And then it's a matter of, can they really break free and start deconstructing when they have been trained by a narcissist?
Yeah. Yes.
Or is that not part of their character?
Yes.
Not that they are narcissists, but their behavior becomes like that.
Well, because they were codependents, and codependents tend to take on the behavior of a narcissist. They mimic them almost for safety. So they start to do things that a narcissist does. And so, yeah, there's a lot to that. Man, this is
the way it is.
Yeah.
Which is exactly the way Christianity is. They've become codependents upon a narcissistic God. And so they've learned to mimic the narcissistic God because that's a safe behavior to have in that viewpoint.
Yeah.
Bleeds out into your parenting, your marriage relation. And then we wonder why these things aren't working.
And it all goes back to the God of the Bible if they grew up in that atmosphere.
Yeah. And it's all justified because of the Bible. So you can have slavery. You can have the wiping out of indigenous people. And just all these atrocious things that are done in the name of God because it's justified. We're spreading the word of God. This is good for all the people. And for the ones that don't want to agree with us and want to hold on to their paganistic, savage ways, well, then they need to perish because they're just going to die and go to hell anyway. So let's just rush the trip up for them.
Yeah, we're keeping them from sinning more. We're lessening their sin. Like that has any, hell is hell. I was taught you break one and you don't believe. The one thing you can't do is not believe Jesus died on the cross for your sins. You're going to hell. You're going to get punished just as much as everybody else. It's punishment regardless for eternity.
It's one of the reasons I have such an issue with the 10 Commandments. Right? It's kind of like, this is the best the God of the universe could come up with.
Yeah.
I don't mention slavery or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's all about him.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But two things, right?
Yeah.
It's the failure of direction.
Well, Mel Brooks said there was 15, so there may have been a few more. He dropped that one tablet in that movie. The
15, 10.
Yeah. God has given me these 10 commandments.
The 10 commandments. The 10 amendments.
Yeah. But your point on that video was it was great because what are the first few commandments about? This guy right here.
This guy.
Worship me, no one else but me.
I think,
And this is what we want to put in our schools?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I heard a politician push back against someone who was talking about putting those in the schools. And he said, so are we going to be signing this on when's the Lord's Day or when's the Sabbath? And she's like Saturday, and he's and I'm like, yeah, he's got a good point. Like you're going to break it because you're going to work on the Sabbath or the Lord's Day, whatever you decide that is.
You're going to pass this law,
which is work.
Sabbath.
Exactly. You're going to break it. And then she's like, well, we're not trying to enforce these necessarily. We just want them displayed because that's part of our history. And I'm like, but children will read it. They're in hypnosis. They're going to go, I guess that's, they're going to read it as law. It's written like very thou shalt not. And I'm sure they'll put it up that way too. King James version is what they're going to use. But it's just like, I mean, you're not fooling anybody, but it's sad.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
So I think we kind of alluded to a few of the examples here and kind of discussed how this is affecting everything in our world, because this narcissistic God is bled over into narcissist. It's trained and brought up narcissist through the church system, just because they're either codependents and mimicking, or has actually elevated people to put themselves in these supreme leadership appointed by God roles that we're dealing with this in here.
Yeah.
And it's just rampant throughout our society where we're seeing these tendencies. Maybe it's not a true narcissist, but there's a lot of people displaying narcissistic tendencies in our world today where, I mean, just you think about what's going on in our government where we're a Christian nation. We're founded on Christian principles. Like, I've read the founding documents, and just because they mention God doesn't mean it's a Christian.
They're not necessarily talking about the idea of God that you have. Yeah.
It was just a way of writing in that time period. When you wrote a document of that importance, you did include God in it. But then you immediately go to freedom of religion. It's like, okay, so we're not.
Well, and this kind of is what it boils down to. They have this black and white thinking. You either believe in the Christian God or you believe in no God.
Yeah.
And there's nothing in between, or not just no God, you hate God. That's what they think. Because they think atheists hate God, even though atheists are like, we don't believe in God. I don't know what you're talking about. But these are
Bible called them children of wrath, is what Paul calls them.
Yes, yes. Basically, like they're objects for wrath, right? They're basically, which would actually go with predestination. Like these people have been designed for, all the ideas just.
Yeah.
There's a lot of.
Supposedly that they were going to be children of wrath.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's still.
A lot of people go to hell.
Yeah.
I mean, think about this. I mean, this is a crazy aspect that people fail to realize is, and I know you guys have been taught this, but when you get to heaven, you will be given crowns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you will give those crowns right back.
Yeah, I know. I had so much problem with that. Yeah. It's like, what?
Right? It doesn't get much more narcissistic than that, right? I mean, like, oh, I'm going to give you crowns, but you're going to give them back to me.
Yeah. I know. Oh, I remember that. Well, first of all, the crowns is
to the New Testament yet.
The crown thing is stupid anyways. Who wants a bunch of crowns? But it was just like, and then you'll put him back at his feet. And, obviously when I was a kid, I didn't know the term narcissism or any of that. But now that sounds so, I remember thinking it was ridiculous. Like, why does he want him back? That's dumb. Just don't give him to us in the first place then, because that's even just weird. I'm going to give these to you and then I'm going to make you give them back to me. Well, and it's
I'm going to have a birthday party this year and I'm going to give everyone gifts so they can give them back to me.
Yeah, and then give it back to me.
Yourself what you want.
Exactly.
Give them to them and have them give them back.
I actually did that on one Christmas.
That's hilarious. Did you?
I told all the kids, I said, don't buy me anything.
You did do that one year. That was funny.
I said, don't worry about it. And they're like, well, what are we going to give you? I go, I'll take care of it. So I got a bunch of presents and wrapped them up and put their names on it. To Dad from so-and-so. And a couple of the kids were really pissed because they love giving gifts. They're like, this is stupid. So it was a one-time thing.
It was funny. Yeah, his glee when he'd be like, oh, I wonder what this is. And we don't know, but he does.
Well, how did you know?
But you were talking about these children of wrath, and it's a story we've actually talked about recently here with Pharaoh.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
Have you done that one yet? I haven't seen.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, with
My
Pharaoh.
main focus was on the killing of the firstborn.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And God hardening Pharaoh's heart.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
And
exactly.
it says that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that God took them through this process, but then said, you know what? Let me bring this to the ultimate narcissistic point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm going to kill all the firstborn.
Yep.
Unless you smear the blood above, I'm going to kill all the firstborn of Egypt. Gee, that seems nice and empathetic of a God to kill the babies.
Merciful and just,
especially
loving.
when he hardened the heart. And that was the thing that we were talking about recently was God apparently he's created millions of people to go to heaven, but billions upon billions to go burn in hell.
Yeah.
And Pharaoh's the perfect example because it seemed like Pharaoh wanted to just be like, go, I'm done with you after the first plague. But then it was no, he hardened his heart.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, why would a God do that? And I remember we've asked preachers that, and they're like, well, God creates people to be an example for everyone else and a lesson to be learned.
In essence, it's like God wanted to glorify himself.
Yeah, exactly. Because if it was about saving the people, he would have done it the first sign when Pharaoh was willing to let him go. But it wasn't. It was about glorify me. Yeah.
That'd be the goal. Like, okay, so some Egyptians start following this God.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that better than killing them?
I mean, these descriptions of God that trip me up when you get to Paul or whoever wrote. I know there's a lot of I don't even know if Paul wrote a lot of the books that he's assigned the author of, but he wrote the love chapter, 1 Corinthians 13. And in there he says, love doesn't insist on its own way. But the Old Testament God, I don't know. There is something there's a different God. That makes me wonder what is going on because
and Paul, especially being a Pharisee.
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. I mean, and then also love doesn't keep a record of wrongs, but the Old Testament and the New Testament, Father God is punishing people for their, something's translated wrong or I'm just misunderstanding everything, but I'm just it's confusing.
Well, yes.
God can do whatever he wants because he's God.
You're misunderstanding.
This is totally sacrilegious.
Oh, yeah.
And so if anybody's made it this far, it's kind of like
there's three people.
God is into BDSM.
Oh
yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Mm.
Just call me Daddy God.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to tell you what to do.
I got a picture of leather and God. Some chaps on God.
Get banned for multiple.
Yeah.
For saying that.
God's a leather daddy.
Oh God.
Yeah. Don't make me whip you.
Yeah.
You do what I tell you to do, or it's going to go badly for you.
I might do a video on that and see if I get a response.
Oh gosh, Dan, stop! You got yourself in so many messes.
Daddy God, go.
Call me Daddy. I'm your father.
Why you got to give him that idea, Brad? Don't do it, Dan.
I mean, think of this though. I mean, even Jesus is called the bride of, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
We're the bride.
The church is the bride. Yeah.
Bride of Christ. Okay, that's effed up.
Yeah.
As it is.
Yeah, that is kind of weird. Yeah. Now that I think about it, yeah, it sounded so beautiful when we were.
I can't wait to get to the New Testament.
Oh, I'm sure you can.
So
that'll be interesting.
Things.
Yeah, that'll be super interesting. I think the Old Testament is obvious, but I'm really curious at how the New Testament looks because I'm like,
because
there are some stories there.
If you're getting
opens up the floodgates, I mean,
if you're getting heat right now for the Old Testament, because a lot of Christians disassociate with the Old Testament. Mm-hmm. That's a different God. Christ cured all that ill. This is a new. Yeah. It's the age God that's learned, from his ways. He's much more mild now. And if you start attacking that in the New Testament, oh shit, brother.
Oh man, I'm going there. All right. And the beautiful part about it is Christianity is basically colonialism and taking over the Jewish scriptures.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are so many great tidbits in the New Testament that I'm sure I'll get banned from TikTok.
Oh, you'll get reported.
You're reported one or two times.
Oh yeah. I know it is.
I mean, but still, it needs to get people need. You should. Are you going to write? You should write a book on it.
I'll title it "Daddy God."
Yeah.
My friend brought that up to me. Actually,
With a big leather whip on there and some handcuffs.
I can't take credit for it, but one of my really good friends, who has a special place in my heart, is brought up and reminded me of the people that pray to Daddy God.
Oh yeah,
right. And I'm thinking, oh, there are so many good directions we can go.
Oh, there is. And I've got so much going on right now.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. That's so funny.
Wait until I get to mine, okay? I'm going to be narcissistic. Don't you dare say that. I'm catch right.
Don't you dare?
I'm right here.
But you can call it 50 Shades of God.
Oh.
Brad, you write it. It needs to be written. You have the title.
Yeah.
That actually probably, there's something there.
Oh, well, I mean, it's just like Christian music today. It's so sexual, right?
Yeah. Oh,
it's
yes.
all about relationship, right? And so, the directions this will be taken.
You're starting something.
Devious minds.
I'm ready to have fun with this one.
That's what God said.
God. Okay.
That will be the catchphrase. So that's what she said. That's what God said.
Oh man, this has gone on a dark path here.
That's hilarious.
I like it. So to wrap this up here then, and we kind of touched on it a little bit, dealing with how to deal with this, because I think deconstruction was a prime example. When people deconstructed, they've separated themselves from that narcissistic relationship of God. And they've suffered the punishment from it, from his minions, the Christians in the world, of actually actively praying and hoping and maybe even acting upon to make life difficult for the person that left the church, just so it drives them to their knees again.
Yeah, go on.
So yeah, just separation of, you're separating from this kind of isolation. And that's the only thing I've ever heard in everything of dealing with a narcissist, is to be completely
pull away
completely.
Which you can't really, but if you're trapped in it, it almost, something has to come up to get you out. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't just all of a sudden wake up and go, I want to get out of Christianity. I had no intentions of leaving it. It just kind of, something was a catalyst,
right? I mean, that's what deconstruction is. It's like, it's not cutting everything down. It's growing up and through what you have.
Yeah.
So what I would say is not only just leaving narcissist personalities and people behind, you need to find a good, I would almost say atheist counselor or deconstruction counselor.
Yeah, definitely.
No motive back into church, but giving you the tools to walk through the boundaries.
Yeah. And that in and of itself is a problem, because there are so few. There's no one, I mean, because for a little while, Candy was going through some counseling and no one understood.
Well, when it was first starting, they couldn't. Yeah. I knew the phrase religious trauma, but they didn't even know it. The therapist didn't know that. And I was like, there is a need for people like you. In hypnotherapy, I work with that too. It's just like, we need more of us working with people who are in these spaces, because it's just, we've lived it. We know how to walk through it too, where a lot of these therapists haven't even lived it yet. You know what I'm saying? Or especially Christian, like, oh man, when you're in Christianity, if you are even allowed to see a mental health practitioner, they've got to be Christian, because they're messing with your head a little bit, and those are the worst, because they have an agenda, kind of. You know what I'm saying? It's not just really, the agenda is not to help you know yourself. It's, this is the right path, and I know they have this certainty, instead of opening up to, like, you get to explore. We're going to figure out what it is that makes you tick. Instead, it's, no, this is the right path, and I'm trying to steer you to get back on it.
Yeah. And I think it's important to, even when I deal with my clients, I never go into with the full purpose or any purpose of saying you have to leave everything. right?
Yeah.
It's the client guides it.
Yes, exactly. You're
And
just
even
there
at
to
that-
create a safe space for them to be open and have a safe space to talk it out. They're working through it themselves, really. You're just creating that space,
we
that
create a
sounding
plan.
board.
Yeah, we create a plan together.
Yes,
Where
exactly.
they want to go.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's, I think, we just need more people like that. But then what do you do? Is there anything you can do for someone who is in it? Let's say a lot of MAGA, when they're in it and they're fully in it, is it a waste of energy to even try until they come to you kind of showing signs of wanting to question? Or, I mean, maybe
I would
it's,
agree with that.
yeah,
I agree. That you're wasting time unless they are open to change.
yeah.
Yes.
If
And
they're
you
not
would say
open to
that is
change,
true with even a narcissist in a codependent in a relationship with a narcissist. You can't like I've had to stop with the savior complex. You know what I'm saying? Like I can't save them, but
Mhm.
that's what I was trying to do.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
and it's the
I mean,
same with someone deconstructing
the
or
person
not
in the
deconstructing.
narcissistic relationship has to be wanting that change.
Yeah, yeah.
Has to be willing to take the steps to find that freedom.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's sad. So really, we just have to wait until they're ready to get out, because otherwise they'll just go back to it or make it worse. And it might make things worse, honestly.
Well, yeah, especially if they're not willing to take the steps.
Yeah,
And we've seen that
Take it.
too,
yeah,
where we've seen someone that was in a relationship, narcissistic relationship, kind of start to separate, but didn't fully commit. And they didn't clean out the house when got rid of all the whatever in there, and the sevenfold demons came back in. I mean,
yeah,
it's 10 times worse now
yeah.
than it was
It
before.
backfired big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, because the narcissist, if you're still in that environment, is going to up the pressure
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and
and
that's
make you pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and that's the biggest thing that I've seen and heard about narcissists is once you break away, they don't just give up on you, because it's like a vampiric relationship where you're their source of nutrition and life, and all their energy is coming from feeding off you.
Mhm.
So you start to their food source is leaving, they're going to come after it with a vengeance to bring it back, and we've seen results of that. But it's to keep pushing through past all that shitty time, because eventually once a narcissist sees that they can't feed off that anymore, then you're dead to them completely.
Mm-hmm.
And they will go to somebody else.
Yeah,
and
you'll
try
find something else to feed off of. Yeah.
Well, I remember having this thought as a kid with even Jesus as a savior. I was like, isn't he really dependent on us he's not a savior without us. Like God's kind of dependent on us just as much as we're supposed to be dependent on him. Like he needs something to save if he's going to be called a savior. So it's just this.
That's the narcissistic tendency.
Yeah.
Of it.
Just
I need someone to save, so I'm going to create all these people to save.
yeah, and then burn most of them.
And that's why other religions like, Greek mythology, Zeus, whatever have you, when people stop believing, where are they? They're gone. I mean,
Mhm.
they're all gone. It's the same thing with, I think, the God that's in the Bible.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Wow. Okay. Yeah,
So
listen to Brad's TikToks. They're good, educational,
Yes,
and you'll
they
get
are.
some insight into your own beliefs, or even just how people who are still caught in it believe, but even just regular everyday relationships that have these same issues. That I don't think most people, there's probably a small percentage that are narcissists that would be DSM-5 diagnosable, but there are, and I've heard that we all have narcissistic tendencies or traits sometimes. Is that true?
Maybe.
Okay, I've heard that before, but I guess I never really thought through it.
If you really want to grasp, I'm sure there are times in everybody's life to where they act a little bit narcissistic.
Mhm.
But
yeah,
like you said, to meet the DSM-5 criteria
Yeah.
is something.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And it might not be that someone's a narcissist, but they're very self-absorbed. They're very immature because they have not grown and evolved. You know what I'm saying? They're kind of stuck in a certain, and it could be trauma related. There's a lot of reasons people act the way that they do, but narcissist is a very, it's rare, but they are out there, and they're not. The point you made at the beginning, whether they're capable of love, that's something I'm going to ponder for a little bit, because that's interesting. So,
I mean, can they really give of themselves without expecting anything in return? Can they think of the person's best interest and not their own? Certain things that we value that show love, can they actually perform those actions without some sort of intent in the background?
Well, and one thing I might add to that is maybe, because my thoughts right now are the only way we actually can love others is we've got to love ourselves first. And I think a narcissist truly doesn't love themselves. I think there's so much shame. They can't look at it. They hate themselves really at the core. And so how can they give love? Until they work through that, but they can't work through it if they can't admit they have it. I don't know.
That's like, can a narcissist be so-called, for lack of better words, redeemed?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. You rarely hear examples of narcissists that come out of it. I mean, I've seen a few videos of people that were diagnosed and said it's a constant daily. It's like AA or anything else. Every day you got to work harder, and it's one more day of not being this way.
And that goes, Dan, that's a great point, because I mean, that goes to, is it a disease? Is it a mental illness that has a cure?
Wow, there's just so much to even study there that we haven't even probably, it's a new thing. It's a new understanding. Isn't it fairly new that people have kind of
Well, I think it's because it's been so rare.
Yeah.
That once again, it's the narcissistic tendencies, but is it a true narcissist?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's a case by case basis.
Yeah. And it's new to the DSM-5 fairly, isn't it? As a diagnose.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
It surprised me.
Yeah.
Check on that.
Interesting. Very interesting stuff, Brad. Thank you. That was great conversation.
A good insight and good exploration.
Gets people thinking. Yeah.
So, is there anything that you want to put out there that you're promoting a new book or anything like that you're going to be working on?
Trying to get through school. But yeah, I think that I may end up writing a book about it.
The 50 Shades of God. Got it.
50 Shades of Daddy God.
Daddy God.
But I'm going to be hitting it probably a little bit harder. I'm going to be interviewed and hit it even harder with some more details. The TikToks are merely meant to get people thinking and looking at things differently. I'm talking about going a little bit deeper into it.
Ooh, yeah.
Than much like we've done, but diving into whether it's certain passages, whether it's the Hebrew words or Greek words or whatever have you. I'm looking to dive a little bit deeper into it.
Yeah.
You're probably studying the Bible even closer than you ever have before. Am I wrong?
Somewhat.
You're looking at it very differently, that's for sure.
I definitely am. And the reason I am is because of all the classes I'm having that, and here's the funny thing. Okay. I'm attending a fully accredited, K-CREP is what they call it, which anybody that goes through any kind of counseling track or anything like that, it needs to be K-CREP certified so the state will recognize it.
Okay.
So it's monitored, which means they have to teach a certain way.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm attending a Christian college K-CREP certified counseling program. All right. Therapist program, right?
Yeah.
This is backfired on them.
As well as clinical mental health, because I was interested in seeing if there were any differences. It was interesting to see how they take it.
Mm-hmm.
And to their credit, because they need to continue to be certified, they don't push their agenda as a Christian college, which I will say has been refreshing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it opens your eyes to, well, crap, how are you guys not seeing this?
Yeah, yeah. And
but I'm with a lot of times a class has non-believers in it, have an atheist in it, have a Christian in it. So it's a nice mix.
Yes, yeah.
Right? Although the professors are most likely Christian, they do not push any agenda, which I will say to their credit is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
But it does make you look at Christianity even more differently according to, the DSM-5, the KCREP kind of certification, all that kind of stuff. It makes you look at it differently going, wow, I can't believe I was in this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I wanted to see what went on behind the lines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I made sure, number one, that I was going to be fully certified, let's say in New York.
Yeah.
As well as other states throughout the nation.
Yeah.
But I wanted to, I don't know if you call it go behind enemy lines. but I have had people reach out to me through emails saying, hey, I heard what you had to say, because you have to submit things, you have to talk about things. I've heard what you had to say. My husband is deconstructing right now. What advice would you give him? So I've had avenues to converse with different people in that process, all the while trying to figure out what's the best avenue for getting this out there and helping people that are going through not only deconstruction, but questioning or mental issues or whatever have you.
Yeah.
And I think just by getting some clap back on it from certain Christian groups, you're striking up the point and you're maybe stirring the gears a little bit for people to think. Because like you said in your class, how do they not see this? It's because they put on them blinders and they're in that bubble so tightly that they're not allowed to see it. They're not even going to question it because questioning is bad. You got to have faith and nothing. That's the absolute goal of everything. It's just belief. Don't question it.
Now, the nice part about that, Dan, is even amidst that, within the counseling program, because I was a former pastor, and because, the KCREP program, and because certification, and because it's scientifically based, right? We're not allowed to do really articles that are not peer reviewed or anything like that. People feel more freedom to ask those questions in a program that's scientifically based.
Yeah, and that's
why evangelicals, which I'm going to go out on a limb and say probably your professors are not evangelical if they're Christian, but whatever. But that's why they hate education because it does lead you out. That's just what it does.
You go outside that box.
And you can start to question freely in a free, safe space. And you start doing that, and a lot of
we would go down that slippery slope they all told us about. It was fun. It's a fun ride.
There's a lot. It's like Daddy God's
slope.
It's Daddy God's basement.
Okay, guys, no more.
It's full of. There's lots of oils on that slope.
Oh, Diddy had nothing on him.
Diddy God.
Oh God! Stop, both of you.
I'm sorry.
Diddy only had barrels.
Oh God! Okay, so no more.
God's got
no more.
back.
Stop. God.
Oh man! All right, we better end this before we get
this
in
is
trouble.
unraveling quickly.
But no, appreciate you coming on. Appreciate what you've been putting out on there. Again, I think it's just wonderful to see it because it's something we've hit on numerous times of this narcissistic I mean, Christianity in and of itself, we've called it narcissistic in post and on this podcast so many times. And just seeing you post it out, it's like, oh, we got to get Brad on to talk about this. It really put her in one full-fledged episode about this because there's so much truth behind it. There's so much narcissistic. I mean, I think someone could actually do a peer-reviewed paper on narcissism in religion and use the religion as an example of a narcissistic behavior.
Yeah.
Because it's
we'll read it when it comes out, Brad.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, so thank you for coming on. Keep pushing out that material. I can't wait till you get to the New Testament and see
Thank
what
you
you're
guys for asking me to come on. It's always a joy to talk to you guys.
Yes,
Oh, yes. Same. We get our counseling sessions with Brad.
Yeah.
So
we learned so much.
So yes, thank you for coming on. Keep pushing on it. I'll look for the comments when you start putting out the New Testament. See how well that goes.
Well, you'll know if you don't ever see my TikTok again.
Yeah. Well, the last one you'll probably come out, in a leather hat and dog collar.
No,
Like,
no, Brad. I'm
Daddy
scrolling
There's
past.
so many things to say.
Let's talk about Daddy God.
Actually, you would hook a lot of people with that. You definitely would. If you want to get the attention of people, it would work.
Happen. It is going to happen.
I'm here for it.
Put the pipe with it. All right?
Yeah. We'll pipe with it. We'll get down and dirty with it.
Oh, man. Well, thank you for coming on, Brad. Appreciate it. Go to dannycan.com. Check out our website there. It's got everything Drop Stones related. It's got Candy's hypnotherapy, Candy's blog, Candy's Substack, Candy's, what else you got on there?
Transform Life podcast.
Yep, Transform Life podcast on there too. So check all that out and everything you need for that on there. Go up on top, rate us 5 stars. We appreciate it. If you don't, then Brad's going to bring Daddy God with him.
He's coming with the bat. So be careful.
So 5 stars to 5 stars only. If you're watching on YouTube, remember, hit that like, smash that subscribe button. Again, thank you, Brad, for coming on.
You want to share Brad's TikTok handle?
Oh, yeah.
What's your handle on TikTok, Brad?
It's Brad Claus, Klaus, Brad Claus.
I'll link it to the podcast description too.
Yeah, we'll put a link on the description there too. So yeah, check it out. It's very good. Mm-hmm. A lot of good stuff in there. So learn a lot about narcissism through the Bible. But with that being said,
are we still doing Listen to Us?
Yeah, why not? Go for it.
Listen to Us. I just said it.
Or Daddy God will come after you and punish you, you naughty little slave. Bye.
Bye. Bye.